You wake up, full of ideas about everything you're going to accomplish today. You tell yourself it's going to be different. You're finally going to tackle that to-do list. But hours pass. The motivation fades. You distract yourself. Procrastinate. Maybe scroll a bit too long. That what you've been calling laziness is actually something else entirely, something deeper, quieter, and far more common than you think. At the end of the day, you're left with the same unfinished goals and a heavy feeling in your chest. Frustrated, you say to yourself, why am I like this? Why can't I just do the things I know I need to do? You might be tempted to call yourself lazy, but you're not even close. What if I told you that laziness is almost never the real problem? Have you ever put off a task not because you didn't care, but because the thought of doing it made you feel overwhelmed? Or maybe you had so many things to do that you couldn't even decide where to start, so you shut down completely. This isn't about making excuses. It's about uncovering the truth, because if you've ever felt stuck, unmotivated, or like you're constantly falling short of your potential, it's not because you lack discipline. If you fear that you won't do something perfectly, your brain convinces you not to start at all. But because they're scared of what others might think. What if you write that article and no one likes it? What if you speak up and get laughed at? So you shrink yourself. You stay quiet. You avoid the spotlight again. Not because you're lazy, but because you're scared. It's easier to avoid a task than to face the risk of failure. It's because something is holding you back beneath the surface. And the moment you understand what that is, everything begins to change. Let's take a closer look. Emotional wounds affect your focus, your motivation, your ability to believe in yourself. If you haven't processed that pain, it can drain you in ways you don't even see. If deep down, you don't believe you deserve success, happiness, or progress, then part of you will sabotage every effort you make. And pain, you turn around and blame yourself for not being more productive. You may look like you're avoiding responsibility, but what's really happening is that you're carrying a burden that's hard to describe. You'll avoid the gym, skip the application, ghost the opportunity, not because you're lazy. The constant notifications, the never-ending demands of modern life, the pressure to be on 24/7, it drains you. Even if you're not physically active, your mind is constantly processing, filtering, deciding. By the time you sit down to work on your goals, your brain is too fried to function. But because you don't feel worthy of the life you secretly want. The myth of laziness. The word lazy is one of the most misused terms in our modern vocabulary. It's often thrown around to describe people who aren't productive, who miss deadlines, who avoid hard work. It's scrolling on your phone for an hour without knowing why. It's rereading the same sentence 3 times and still not processing it. It's watching your dreams drift further away, while you sit still frustrated, confused, and calling yourself lazy. But the truth is, most people who are labeled as lazy aren't doing nothing out of choice. They're struggling with something they haven't yet been able to name. It shuts down non-essential functions. You procrastinate, not because you're careless, but because your mind is trying to protect you from drowning. Think about it. That's not laziness. That's something else entirely. The real culprits behind your inaction. Let's talk about what's actually behind the behavior we mislabel as laziness. One of the biggest causes is overwhelm. When you have too many responsibilities, too many tasks, or too many expectations piling up, your brain enters survival mode. Then there's perfectionism. It doesn't always look like someone meticulously organizing their workspace or rewriting the same paragraph for hours. Sometimes, perfectionism hides behind procrastination. Closely related to that is fear of judgment. Many people hold back not because they don't have the energy or desire. And then there's low self. This one's hard to talk about, but incredibly important. The role of mental fatigue. Another huge barrier is mental exhaustion. You may not even realize how tired you are. This kind of fatigue doesn't look dramatic. It's not passing out from exhaustion. It's subtle. The invisible weight of unprocessed emotions. Here's something most people never consider: the weight of unresolved emotional pain. If you've been through trauma, loss, disappointment, or heartbreak, your energy doesn't just bounce back. You might tell yourself to just push through, but that unhealed part of you is always pulling at your attention, whispering that you're not ready, not strong enough, not capable. Why? Self-blame makes it worse now. Here's the cruelest part of all this. After struggling with overwhelm, perfectionism, fear, exhaustion, you beat yourself up for not being motivated. You compare yourself to others. You question your worth. But blaming yourself doesn't create progress. It creates shame. And shame is one of the most powerful forces of paralysis. The more ashamed you feel, the harder it becomes to take action. The cycle continues. You tell yourself you're lazy. That belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you remain stuck not because of who you are, but because of what you believe about yourself. Reframing the narrative, it's time to rewrite the story. Instead of asking, why am I so lazy? Ask, what's really going on beneath the surface? Start noticing your patterns without judgment. Are you avoiding a task because it feels too big, too uncertain, too tied to your identity or a sense of worth? Stop trying to do everything at once. You don't need to finish the book, just write the next paragraph. Once you start identifying the real reasons, you can start addressing them. If you're overwhelmed, Break tasks into smaller pieces. If perfectionism is paralyzing you, remind yourself that imperfect action beats perfect inaction every time. If fear is holding you back, ask yourself what the worst-case scenario really is, and then ask what the best case could be. If exhaustion is stealing your energy, prioritize rest. Not the mindless kind where you zone out, but the kind that actually replenishes you. Nature, movement, stillness, real connection. Healing takes time. Progress isn't always visible, but every small act of self-care, every moment of awareness, every tiny step forward, it all counts. And if you're dealing with pain or self-doubt, give yourself grace. The power of compassionate discipline. It's about building a relationship with yourself where you keep showing up kindly, consistently, and without judgment. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself to do things you hate. When you shift from shame to understanding, from blame to curiosity, you unlock something powerful. You start showing up not because you feel guilty, but because you believe in your future. You can get honest. You can ask yourself what you truly need, not just to be productive, but to be well. Maybe you just need someone to remind you that your struggle doesn't define you. You start working not to prove your worth, but because you already know you have it. This is compassionate discipline. It's rooted in care, not control. And it's far more sustainable than punishment ever will be. What you can do today, right now, this very moment, you have a choice. You can keep calling yourself lazy, keep clinging to the label that makes you feel small, broken, unworthy, or you can pause. Maybe you need clarity. Maybe you need rest. Maybe you need a plan that feels manageable. Whatever it is, give yourself permission to take the next step, no matter how small. It's your nervous system. It's your emotions. It's your past. It's the pressure to do it all and be it all and never show weakness. It means you can finally drop the guilt, the shame, the lies. Write one sentence. Make one phone call. Take one deep breath. Because once you move even just a little, you create momentum. And momentum changes everything. You are more than you think. Here's the truth you've been needing to hear. You are not lazy. You are capable. You are intelligent. You are full of untapped energy and potential. You've just been buried under layers of fear, stress, exhaustion, and unrealistic expectations. But now you see it. It's not laziness, it's life. And knowing that awareness alone is powerful, because it means you can stop fighting yourself and start working with yourself. And it means you can start building the life you want, one gentle, consistent step at a time. Not because you forced yourself to, but because you finally understood that you never needed to be fixed. You just needed to be seen. So let today be the day you stop calling yourself lazy and start giving yourself the care, the structure, and the belief you've always deserved. Because the moment you do, you'll discover something incredible. You were the solution all along.